coming to you from the Gathering of Friends 2015 in lovely Niagara Falls, New York. And we're here with our good friend Matt Leacock. And of course, the man with the hat on, Daryl Andrews, from Meeple Syrup Show. So, we're going to talk to Matt a little bit about his upcoming projects and a lot of what's happening here at the Gathering. So let's just get right down and dirty with it. Matt, tell us about the next game that's coming out, the one that I love with a passion that is beyond words almost, Thunderbirds.
Right. So
It's a lot of love.
yeah,
I mean, he's
great.
played it twice. I'm jealous because I've seen him play it and I want to hear about it. So
Yeah. Thank you for playing through and testing.
It's awesome.
So Thunderbirds is a new cooperative game that's coming out this September into retail, and it's based on the 1960s license of the same name, Thunderbirds, where super marionettes travel around the world and avert disasters.
So you're gonna do your creepy marionette?
Yeah, right.
That's where nightmares come.
It's not helping. Right. So anyway, there's this show. It's kind of like a cult classic, really big in the UK, and every 10 years or so they celebrate it. This is the 50th anniversary of the show.
Oh,
that's a big deal.
Yesterday was actually Jerry Anderson's birthday, so we were playing it. It was nice. So it's good timing, and Wedded Workshops are the minis for this new series that's coming out with the same name. So
the minis are like what you already have. My mind is gonna explode when I see the final product, because just the idea of the little vehicles.
I'm talking about in the show. No, Wedded's not doing minis for my game. That would be a dream.
That would be a dream. Future game. Future game.
Well, anyway, this is based on the original license from 1965, and in the game, you and your fellow members of International Rescue travel around, avert disasters, while trying to avoid the Hood's scheme. You have to foil his scheme. So if you can foil his scheme before the disasters occur, then you win the game.
Right.
That evil Hood.
Yeah, and so the Hood, if there's an expansion where a player can play as the Hood, and then the other players, anywhere from one to, maybe one player?
Yeah, the game will shift. It'll be 1 to 4 players, and then if you add the Hood expansion,
it's 1 to 5.
It's 1 to 5. 1 to 5.
Yeah, really
well, right now I got 2 to 5, but I think we probably make 1 to 5 work. I'm still developing the Hood right now.
Yeah.
And Sam was testing. So
I was the Hood.
Yeah, you were very evil.
Yes, and if you know
not
how
quite as
the show
effective.
works, I almost was. If you know how the Hood works, the Hood goes around trying to take pictures of all the international rescue vehicles for some nefarious reason, and he also kidnaps people and all this kind of stuff. So it was great in the game, and Jay's right. We played with Jay and JF from the Sophia Z-Man, and I ended up kidnapping Penelope and hiding her away in my hideout.
How could you do that? Oh.
And then we never rescued her.
We never rescued her. But I also hijacked Thunderbird 1, and then was flying that all over the world, hatching my plots. It was so fun. It was super fun. It's just like the show.
Aside from a good game is when people are talking about it and telling stories.
Yeah, it was a total plot point, and it was really neat to do. And then I think there's some balancing that's going on right now, and some redesign. So the base game is so strong that I can foresee the expansions, just being that much better.
Yeah, I played the base game 6 times here, and I think I reworded a sentence. So I think it's really
it's done.
It's there. Yeah. And the Hood, we're just adjusting the balance a little bit. But.
And the other expansions are for Brains.
The first expansion adds Parker, Brains, and Tintin. Yep. And it adds Tracy Island miniature, which is pretty cool.
Yep.
And the Ladybird jet that Tintin rolls around, and Fab 2, which will carry Fab 1 or a piece of
it's a yacht.
Yeah. And then it also comes with little miniatures for all the pod vehicles. So that's the first one.
That's what I'm so excited about.
So the little miniatures will actually fit inside the other miniatures.
Miniatures.
Cool.
Yeah, it's pretty darn cool. And then one of them actually has a cap that sits on top of it, so it encapsulates all the miniatures inside the miniatures. And then all the Thunderbirds themselves are going to be little miniatures that can ride on top of
the members of International Rescue.
Oh,
yeah.
Get that right.
So
Get that right.
Yes, I know. And it's just super cool so far. And the hood himself is going to be a miniature. That
he'll be he's a miniature in the base game, and he moves down his scheme track, and then he'll actually be a peg in the expansion. He'll have his lair, and there'll be Creighton-word mansion, I think, and then a sub in his plane.
The submarine, sneak up on people and get them.
So you've had some other games you've been playing here at the Gathering. Can you tell us a little bit about?
Well, I've been testing
testing
a couple expansions for the Cure.
Okay.
Pandemic the Cure.
Very exciting.
So new roles and challenges for that. It's been fun to develop.
Yeah.
And I've got a new addition to the Roll Through the Ages line.
Cool.
Showing off.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's fun. And then a party game. So
excellent. Again, I haven't got to play it, but Zen loves it, so I'm looking forward to that. Does that have a home?
I'm shopping around right now.
Awesome. That's a good thing.
So there is a party game somewhere. Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit. I mean, one of the things we like to ask our guests is kind of their design philosophy or what they learn along the way. And I think an interesting challenge was you converting Pandemic to the Cure and using dice. Tell us a little bit about that design challenge.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, when I met with Z-Man about Z-Man Games about Pandemic, and all sorts of different ideas about different directions they could take it. You make it a card game, make it a dice game. All these different ways you could respin it or bring new life to it. And I was gravitating toward the dice game first because it felt like such an interesting challenge.
Yeah, very different.
Yeah, I mean the board game uses a lot of cards. It's pretty card heavy, but there's no dice anywhere to be seen.
Right.
So for me, the fun of it was the challenge of like, okay, what do you do if you throw away the entire board? Where do you start? And I knew I wanted to keep the characters and the roles because that helps individualize the players.
Something personal engagement was.
Yeah, it makes you feel different from all the other people, and you feel great when you can take advantage of your characteristic. And I always want role powers so we were powerful, not just some rule breaker you forget.
Sure.
So anyway, with the Cure, when I threw away the board, the first thing I did was I mapped the disease cubes to dice, and those have 6 sides. So then suddenly I had 6 coasters or 6 regions where the dice could show up.
Sure.
And then I did a lot of modeling of the treatment center in the center, and then just kind of gradually iterated from there.
So tell us a little bit about you're not going to tell us about Pandemic Legacy because there's a gag order on Matt.
I was so hoping it would be played, but we did not get to play.
No, it's not here.
It's on lockdown.
Lockdown. But tell us about storytelling, beats, all the narrative type of stuff that you're doing without specifically referencing Pandemic Legacy, but how you think about it in terms of like a television season. That's really interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been thinking about the way I've been designing co-ops quite a bit, trying to figure out what was working or what is working about Pandemic, because I design very intuitively, and it turns out in Pandemic, every so often you get these epidemic cards and it ramps up tension, and so originally I mapped that to a state of flow that you get. Haley Chick sent me the book Flow. It talks about this, how you kind of vacillate between hope and fear. No, not hope and fear. Anxiety and boredom.
Yeah,
anxiety and boredom. Right. So
a great lecture to look up.
Yeah, I gave a talk at Google. Yeah, right. And so you get control of the situation, and after a while you start to get a little bored, and so the game kind of reacts with epidemics and it ramps up the tension. And then you get anxiety, and then you get too much of that, then you give up. You don't want that, so you can't go too high and you come back down. So you have to kind of manage this flow channel.
Sure.
And years later, I was introduced to the book by Robin Laws called Hamlet's Hit Points, which talks about how you can use storytelling techniques that modulate players' emotions, and that's between.
Yes, that's the hope.
That's between hope and fear. So you're really afraid for the protagonist, and then the good things happen, and then you feel hopeful, and then bad things happen, and you're fearful, and this constant up and down is what really is.
Right, and that's what the epidemics are.
Yeah, right, and that's I think a closer description of what's going on there, or maybe the two are kind of tied together because you need the challenge, you don't want the boredom.
Right.
So there's something between those two things.
And how does that map for, say, Thunderbirds, which you just played?
Yeah, a similar kind of thing, right? You get hopeful because you just solve you avert a disaster and you get some rewards for it, and some of the tension and pressure comes off the disaster track. But then new problems arise, or you get a bad roll, and you have to regroup. and
Right.
suddenly you're in crisis mode again.
Right.
Another piece of it is when you draw a card off the disaster deck, it may be that card that's really going to push you too far, but you might get a relief because instead of that happening, the hood will advance. And sometimes that card is really the worst thing in the world, and sometimes it's the best thing, but it allows that tension to modulate.
And then adding the hood as an actual human element decision-making process as the fifth player in the game allows that person to actually control that channel.
Yeah, there's some of that. I think you're kind of taking the role of the cardboard AI to some extent. It needs to accomplish the same goals, but what I've opened up is sort of like this little sandbox of activities you can do. So as the hood, you can take pictures, or you can kidnap people, or you can sew extra scheme chips, and so you can be creative about it. That's what I enjoyed.
That's what I found the best part about being a hood is there were 3 really well-defined ways to win, but they all interacted in order to help you win kind of overall. And that was really critical for my enjoyment as the hood player, is that, you know, when the team, International Rescue, was doing so well on one thing, I could hammer them in another area because they had left something unguarded, right? And then they'd have to come run over here and deal with this. And so I was sending them around the world, spinning, trying to do things, and I was so close to winning, and it was funny. Normally,
we won.
Oops, you know. That's what happens when you play against a game designer. When, although you didn't win at
I was just
Pandemic
going to say,
Survival.
we got to talk about Pandemic Survival next.
Yeah. But when, normally on a game, if I lose by a die roll, it's very frustrating for me. Because that's typically just luck. But in this game, I felt that you guys deserved to win because I did so well and was hammering you guys from a lot of angles, and in the end, you prevailed. And I think that told a good story, and I was okay with losing by some event like that because it told a great story. In the end, the story was more important than the winning and losing. And that, to me, is a sign of a game that will live in my library forever, right? That's something that I can play with my family, it's something I can play with my friends, and we'll talk about it. And we talk about this all the time, how the debrief after the game is more telling of how good a game is than the game itself a lot of times.
Right, because you generate some memories.
Yeah, that's it, right? Generating those memories.
So talking about memories, I thought it was hilarious when we did Pandemic Survival a few days ago. It was awesome to have a room packed with people. Anyone who doesn't know Pandemic Survival, the idea is we have multiple teams playing the exact same scenario, and you got to play. How did it feel to be playing?
Matt's first time playing.
Yeah, how did that feel to be in there under the gun with the extra pressure?
I've watched 4 of these, and I know how intense they are. They were all worried that I was going to bail. That I couldn't handle that. So I showed up like 5 minutes before.
Right.
Like, they were worried I was going to show up.
That's fantastic.
But Jeff and I had a plan, and we, it was stressful, but it was.
I heard your map was very clear, but didn't quite make it to the curing zone.
It's part of the thing you have to juggle. It's like, are we going to really risk it and go for it, which is high stakes, high reward, or are we going to kind of try to survive?
Right. Yeah. And I heard the team that won, they were like one moment away from
they
total,
were literally a cube away from, you know,
outbreak
after outbreak after outbreak. They would have chain reacted. They had 3 cubes in like at least 7 cities. So Pandemic Survival, the way you win is by being the first to 4 cures, just like in the game. But if nobody has,
if everyone like dies off,
if you're the last man standing, then you still win. But if if 2 teams in the same turn get 4 cures, then we go by the number of cities in which you have 3 cubes. The least being the winner. And just so you know, Pandemic Survival runs on a set deck. So Daryl's
duplicate
pandemic
so
across multiple realities.
Every reality is set to be the same. So I would actually take from one deck and say, okay, and now the next card you're going to pick up is, and everyone would pick up that card.
Right. So Daryl usually, when we run these things, Daryl's the moderator and I'm one of the judges, and And
Don't shoot the messenger.
yeah, Martin is the designer of a lot of the scenarios with that consultation, and it's just ridiculous amount of fun. So one of the new things that was in this one was the characters that had like hit points.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So
Someone even died.
In the spirit of survival, right? You have to survive the whole episode.
And so you could die out if one of your team members died, and it's only teams of 2. And this one was the epidemiologist and the generalist.
Yep.
And so they each have 4 hit points, and if they are caught in a city with an outbreak, near an outbreak, etc., etc.,
If they infect while they're in that same
while
city.
they're in that same city, they lose a hit point, and they have 4 hit points until they die. They can waste a turn, sort of, to heal themselves and all this sort of stuff. So it's a really interesting other element.
Yeah.
That Tom Lehman didn't like.
No, you like to find. There's one little tweak we're going to do for outbreaks, and then, one of the things that we both really enjoyed about that was the agonizing decision of, do we need, we can get this cure, or we can heal you up, because if you get hit again, we're out.
Right.
And so Jeff and I decided that he was worth saving.
Aww.
We talked about it.
That was
Said,
a
well,
moment.
Jeff, I think, so we healed him up, and we were 4 turns away from the victory. Because you get hit with 1 cube when you're on death's door.
Yeah.
That's it.
That could have been it.
And our strategy was basically to opportunistically cure while trying to keep the board clean.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to like hyper optimize.
Yes, you were mitigating loss. Mitigating loss.
Yeah. And then it's like, oh, we got him. Let's go cure.
Yeah. Yeah. And so Tom Lehman, who did some of the expansions.
Yeah, he was co-designed all 3 of the expansions.
Right. Was sitting next to
It was an unfair loaded room.
It was pretty funny. Watching them
lasted
play.
longer than Tom.
I know. So that was a really good experience watching that happen. What have you seen at the gathering that you've liked so far?
Well, I played one of Lotto's party games. He's not known for party games, and I enjoyed that quite a bit.
So good.
Yeah. Have you ever played Pictomania?
No, I haven't.
That's another Lotto party game.
Yeah.
And it's
Check it
out.
out.
I have as well.
Buddy Moose Moose?
Yeah, you
Yeah,
Buddy
Buddy Moose Moose. Okay. That as well. So yeah, anything else that you saw that you enjoyed?
I'm trying to think of. I recall is not so good on the last.
That's
No,
fair.
that's
That's fair. You're
fair
fair.
enough.
Going home. Well, we appreciate you taking the time before you go to be on the show and share, about your upcoming games and also what you've been seeing at the Gathering of Friends.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Appreciate it.
Should give this thing to the coffee.
Oh God, very good.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.